Hello everyone, it's Graciela on the side of the screen. Welcome to Power GI. In today's video, we're gonna learn how to embed images in emails using Power Automate. For this specific example, what we wanna do is to invite a lot of users to some sessions that we are holding every month on the Power Platform community. This is an example on how it looks. The recipients can be both in Outlook or Gmail. So we need a way that works for both of them. Power Automate has an out-of-the-box option to embedding images, and that is getting the file content of the image that we want to embed, and then using this data URI function in the image tag of the email and sending it. This works perfectly if all the recipients that you have only use Outlook, but if they use email, this is what they're gonna see. So definitely that doesn't work. And in this video, we're gonna show how to work around this issue and show the image regarding of the email client. I'm just gonna go back to my flows and start a new one. I wanna send the invitation to all the users whenever a new image is added to this folder. So just go ahead and do an automated cloud flow. Here, I'm gonna select the when a file is created in a folder trigger. I'm gonna assign the name to the flow. The site address, let's select the one that will contain our images and then select the folder. It's in general, and then whenever something is dropped here, we want to send that invitation email. I'm gonna add a new step and I'm gonna click on send email. For now, I am gonna set it up to send it to myself. But then I'm gonna set it up some other Gmail and Outlook users and we can see it working. In the body, I'm just gonna write something like a quick invitation. So this is the message that we wanna add for all the events that we're gonna hold. And here in the middle, we want to add the image. And remember that we render images inside emails by using HTML. So we have to use the image tag from HTML. If we go to this documentation page, we see that there are different ways to render those resources into emails. We can do that directly by adding the name of the file. We can also add a similar text to what we did here that doesn't work for Gmail. And we can also use URLs. You can see here that there are different ways, and this is the other way that works for us. We can set up a URL to host the image that we want to show in the email, and then we can render that image in the email. And this works perfectly regardless of the email client that we want to send or email to. So this is the one that we're going to use. So we need to set up a URL that will host our image, and we're going to do that with Power Automate as well. So I'm just going to go back to Power Automate and I will create a new tab and start a new flow. I'm gonna set it as automated, but then I'm gonna skip it. And then here I'm gonna select HTTP. Here I'm gonna select when an HTTP request is received. And by default, this is gonna go gray, and it's gonna let me know that the URL that I have to use for my image will be generated after I save this. So what we need this flow to do is to, we need to call it from the email. Then when we call this URL, the body content of our image is going to be called from this URL, and then it's going to be rendered when this URL responds back to the email. So the first thing that we need to do is get the file content of our image. I'm going to select get file content using path, and I am using the SharePoint connector because my files are going to be uploaded to SharePoint. So let's select here the SharePoint site, and then temporarily I'm going to just select the file that we have there, but we know we need to change this to be dynamic. We're going to see that later. And then once I have my file content, I'm going to add a new step here, and I'm going to do response. This is where we take the file content and respond back to the email so it can be rendered. We add response, and then in the body, we select the file content. Now, we know that this file path needs to be dynamic, and we need to define that whenever a file is uploaded, we're going to grab the ID and pass it here. So we need the URL to include that ID, and that's an option that Power Automate gives us. If we go here to show the advanced options, and then in the relative path, I'm going to include the picture ID. We need to write backslash, picture ID, slash, and then inside curly brackets, I'm going to write the same thing, picture ID. And then once I set this up, this relative path parameter becomes available, and I can use it along my flow. So I'm just going to, instead of using the fixed path that we have here, I'm going to go to picture ID. Then I'm going to remove this because I'm not going to need it anymore. And finally, we need to change this method to get. Then I'm going to save it. And after this ends saving, a URL is going to be generated. This is what we have here. So I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to open a notepad so we can see it quickly. This is how the whole URL looks, and you can see how in the middle we have the parameter that we defined, the path parameter. And we need to include picture ID, and then instead of these curly brackets and picture ID, we need to include the ID that we want to pass, that we're going to grab whenever a new file is uploaded to our folder. So I'm just going to go back to my email, and I'm going to switch this to HTML code. Here, I'm going to remove these two and start the image tag. Here, if we go back to this page, we can define the URL by using the src attribute. So src equals, the source is going to be equals to this URL. And then instead of picture ID in the curly brackets, I'm going to remove that and map it to my file ID. So I will save it, and I'm going to test this so we can see what's left to be done on this part. So I'm going to click on test manually, and I'm going to upload a new file into my folder. Okay, it's done. Now my flow is running. My email was sent successfully. And as you can see, the image is not showing at all. That is because if I go to the HTTP request URL and I go to the runs, I see that it has failed. Yeah, we're getting an error that the file was not found, and that's mainly because the URL is replacing the spaces by this plus sign. So I'm gonna go back to edit, go open the file content, remove picture ID, and then I'm gonna go to expression and do decode URI component. So I'm gonna select that function, and in the middle of it, I'm gonna select the picture ID. Then let's click OK, save, and I will go back and test with the previous try. Okay, so let's see if this time it's working. Yep, now it's properly showing the image, inviting me to this. Now we're gonna test it with an email. Now I just added a Gmail account in the blind copy of the email to see if this works in Gmail as well. So I'm just gonna retest it with one of the previous tries, and then the email is gonna be sent. I just got it in my Outlook account, and let's go to Gmail, refresh, and open the new email. And you can see here that it's properly rendering the image in the Gmail account. So that works perfectly fine if you have guest users, if you're sending emails to people outside your organization. This approach works perfectly for you. That's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. And if you are a Spanish speaker, you can subscribe to our channel to stay in tune to the events that we are hosting on the Power Platform community in El Salvador. We are trying to do events every month. So make sure to stay tuned so you can keep learning more about the great tools from the Power Platform. It's Graciela, and thank you so much. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.